So thank you very much, Narine, and thank you very much to Arcelo Kader for this invitation to this conference. So I'm going to speak about the place of KRG in this complicated world that we have today. Understanding that the KRG, can I have the first map, please? KRG must do in the context of the conflict in Ukraine and in the Middle East implies understanding precisely what is a new balance of power at the global and regional level. What is the relation between these two conflicts in Ukraine and in Middle East, and what are the force and the weakness of the KRG in this highly destabilizing configuration for Middle East. So, the war in Ukraine is an historic turning point because Russia has definitely turned towards the East, Eurasism, that we call Eurasism, in the face of the West, which is now considering other Russian offensive in Europe as possible, for instance, Moldavia or Baltic country, and the rest of the world, Middle East and sub-Africa, as we see in Mali or in Central Africa, for instance. I'm not very optimistic for the future of the Levant. Levant, it's what we call the West, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. We could tell also Mashrek, but we use the definition of Levant, Near East, if you want. The future of Levant, I imagine that in the future a strong territorial fragmentation in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, with Turkish, Iranian, Russian, and American influences zone in the area. Because it seemed to me impossible for the central states in regain control of the whole territory, as we have the example in Syria, but also in Iraq. What does it mean for the population? That the population will fall back on ethnicity, religion, and tribalisms. If we have a weakened central state, of course, it's the local structure who are supporting the population. Those with the strongest cohesion will be the winner, provided have the means for the independence in economic terms and in strong external alliance. And this is the case, of course, of the KRG. But this implies investing in defense of Mr. State to modernization of the Peshmerga. It's a good thing because we cannot have independence in the area without strong forces, and that is imply to maintaining the fighting spirit of the Kurdish youth. From 2015, the Russian intervention in Syria, which kept Bashar al-Assad in power, marked the end of the Western hegemony of the world since the collapse of Soviet Union in 1991. The war in Ukraine is the continuation of the return of Russia on the international scene, which seeks to regain control over the former Soviet space. But also, it marks a global divide between the Western camp and the anti-Western camp, which can be described as an Eurasian alliance since it formed by the couple China and Russia. And with countries like Iran, Pakistan, and even Turkey, as we saw during the Samarkand conference in September 2022. Of course, all the countries who were at the Samarkand conference were not on the same page than Russia and China. You have India, for instance, was present at this conference. But the fact that countries like India, like Turkey, are at this conference with Russia, as Russia invaded Ukraine, indicate a defiance against the West. And when we see which country voted against Russian aggression against Ukraine, very few countries voted against. Russia, for instance, Syria, Eritrea, North Korea. But in black, you can see the country who haven't voted, who haven't condemned the Russian invasion of Ukraine. India, China, Algeria, Sudan, Iran, Iraq, of course. So many countries haven't condemned this invasion. And this is a clearly defiance on the Western alliance. Russia, China, Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, Algeria, all these countries have in common a frustration vis-à-vis of the West in relation to the past, in particular the colonization. Putin, Russia, never accepted the fall of Soviet Union. Turkey never accepted the Lausanne Agreement in 1923 and want to extend again its border against Greece on the Mediterranean Sea. They have also always the dream of the Vilayet of Mosul in the area, and they are creating a new northern Syrian republic in Idlib, Al-Bab in Syria, and probably after 50 years they will try to annex this area. So, and for China, of course, it's the problem of Taiwan. They never accepted the division with Taiwan. So Russia, Turkey, China are extending their influence in the country of the South also by alliance influence in Mali, in Central Africa, Djibouti, Sri Lanka for China, Libya for Turkey. And it's a strategy of encirclement of the Europe, of Western Europe. It's very clear because today the Russian and allies are on the east, Crimea, and also Syria, Libya on the south of Europe. So the war in Ukraine has therefore reinforced the both sides. NATO on one side, because you have seen that Sweden and Finland decided to join NATO. They were a neutral country, but they decided to join NATO because they are afraid, of course, about an invasion, a Russian invasion. Military budgets are increasing in the West, because NATO decided to stop Russia and also to stop China threaten Taiwan. Okay, this is the strategy, this is the willing of the NATO. The question is, do the NATO will do it concretely? We have the willing, do we have the means to do it? This is always the main question. But does it mean a confrontation with this Eurasian axis in the year that we are going to come for the next decade? Before finding probably a balance, as during the Cold War, we have the first 15 years of the Cold War with war in Korea, war everywhere, and the second part of the Cold War, what we call the frozen time, no confrontation, and just people who are face to face. And I think that we are in the new Cold War today, and in the first phase of the Cold War. What does it mean, confrontation? What does it mean, the comeback, what we call the access, the crescent of crisis from Africa to Middle East? What does it mean, the confrontation between NATO and Eurasian alliance, China and Russia? And of course, Levant is a buffer zone between the Eurasian alliance and the NATO alliance, because countries at the south of Levant, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, are on the western side, and countries at the north, including Turkey today. Turkey, it's always ambiguous, but Iran and Russia are on the other side. And so, unfortunately, this area, Levant, is a battlefield today. Is a battlefield, and we have also to examine the different strategy of the power who are ruling this area. First, of course, it's United States. Well, Professor David Romano will speak a lot about the American strategy in Middle East. I will not go in details, but simply I would like to recall the major objectives of United States. First, protection of the Gulf country, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai, Qatar, because the oil, and also because it's a huge market for US, because all these countries are buying goods, military weapons to US, so it's very, very important. You know that the Gulf country, the GCC, it's the same, it's nearly the same PIB, GDP, the same GDP than China when the price of oil is up to $100 the barrel. So it's not nothing. And of course, the protection of Israel, which is considered like an American state. Security of Israel is like the American security. So for US, this is two main things for in the policy in Middle East. But vis-à-vis of Iran, the strategy is, of course, to freeze the nuclear program. This is a priority of the Biden administration, to freeze the nuclear program, to come back to the JCPOA. Which means staying in Iraq and Syria to fix the confrontation here and prevent the confrontation to spill over to Saudi Arabia, to spill over to Emirates, to Israel. This is also why you have a Gulfi country like Emirates, who are now dealing with Bashar al-Assad, starting to support Bashar al-Assad to prevent the Turks to come more in Syria. That's why always you have Saudi Arabia who pay the self-administration in Syria and the Syrian Democratic Forces, who support financially the Syrian Democratic Forces, to fix the problem in Syria, instead to see the problem to come to Saudi Arabia. It's not by generosity that they support the Kurdish people in Syria. It's because the Kurdish people in Syria are a dam, a wall against the Turkish influence on the Arab world. So I think that US today become much realistic in foreign policy. This is why they understood that Russia was going to attack Ukraine, while in Europe, the French government, for instance, did not believe it, because I think that US learned the lesson of the Syrian crisis, and they are less on human rights and more pragmatic and more realistic, but I will ask you, what do you think about the US policy, of course. So I think that this is the end of the American disengagement of the Middle East. It means supporting local allies. Joe Biden, after the withdrawal from Afghanistan, will not be the president of another American withdrawal. Does it mean withdraw of the troops from Syria or from Iraq, for instance? Because if China become the priority at the world level for US, because this One Belt, One Road initiative, this is the Chinese strategy is not just economic strategy. You can see what China is doing to do. It's like, so I don't know the word in English, but in Arabic, arkaput. It's like...
Spider?
Yes, arkaput, it's in the sea. Yes, arkaput, yes. So in English, I forget the word. They want to dominate all the Asia, the Eurasia, by sea road, by land road. And they are controlling now states in the area, like Sri Lanka, which is a Chinese colony today. Djibouti is a Chinese colony today, and they extend their influence on the whole area. So here, Middle East, of course, because it's a crossroad, it's very important for the West to stay here to prevent the Chinese-Russian couple with the support of Iran to dominate this area. So I think that for KRG, which is the main ally of United States in Levant, it's probably the insurance today to have a military support, to keep the military support from US, and a protection if Baghdad want to take control of the Turkish border, for instance, like it tried in 2017 after Kirkuk. We know that the Shia militia wanted to take Ibrahim Khalid and Feshrabur, and I think that they still have this objective. But today, I think that US will protect the KRG. The Russian strategy in Levant, the intervention of Russia in 2015 was a long-term strategy. It was not just tactic, it was a long-term strategy. First, Russia wanted to show its hard power, and after to be able to do what they are doing in Ukraine. Because if you show your hard power, you want to tell to your enemy that don't try to resist, we are going to beat you. When we had the battle around Kiev, for instance, everybody thought about the battle of Aleppo, how the Russians were able to retake Aleppo by massive destruction, and it was a threat for the Ukrainian population. And also the other objective of Russia when Russia came to Syria, it was to threaten Saudi Arabia. You know, Russia, it's an oil country. 50% of the exportation, it's oil. 25% of the exportation, it's gas. 75% of the Russian exportation, it's hydrocarbon. So Russia is not so different from Saudi Arabia. It's the same kind of economy. But for Russia, it's very important to have high oil price, because it's very costly to produce oil in Russia. In Saudi Arabia, the cost of the production, it's $3 a barrel, because it's very easy. In Russia, in Siberia, in the north, you have to pay $20, $25 for the production of the oil. So in 2015, the price of the oil was only $40 a barrel. It was unacceptable for Russia, because Russia was in crisis, because the oil price was so low. And the only thing that could increase the price of the oil, it's to stop the Saudi production. How to stop the Saudi production? Just by to send missile on the pipeline, to send missile on oil exploitation to block the Saudi production. And it could be easy if you have Iran as ally. From North Yemen, you can tell to the Houthi to send missile on Jeddah or in Daman. What's happened a few months ago? So Mohammed bin Salman is not mad. He knows very well that his kingdom is weak. He depends on the oil. If he cannot export the oil, he's finished. And this is the weakness of Saudi Arabia. And Russians have very good understanding about that, and they know that a strong alliance with Iran, they can threaten Saudi Arabia and tell to Saudi Arabia, reduce your production, the price of oil will increase. And we have seen that Mr. Joe Biden came to Saudi Arabia and asked to increase the oil production, because we need oil instead of the Russian oil for Europe, for instance. And Mohammed Salman refused, because now he takes his order from Moscow, and not anymore his order from, not full order from Moscow, but now is more balance between Russia and United States. So this is the reality of the Russian power, why Russia came to Syria. It was not just for Bashar al-Assad. He has largest plan for the area. And of course, this plan is second with the Iranian plan of the Iranian Crescent, the Iranian axis in the area. What does it mean for Iran to dominate Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon? The objective, of course, of of Iran is to protect the western border, because the Islamic Republic always think about the war, Iran, Iraq, who could have destroyed the regime in the Haiti. And also, it's very ideological to destroy Israel, because it's still what we can call the mobilizing utopia of the Iranian regime. It's probably the last thing of the Islamist revolution. But of course, and to have a kind of dissuasion from a Western attack. Iran have no nuclear weapon for the moment. So the only way to threat the West is to target Israel. If you attack us, we will attack Israel. This is kind of a deal with the West. So the problem that with the war in Ukraine, we have seen that a nuclear power like Russia will not retaliate seriously on Russia. Russia invade Ukraine. There is sanction. We give weapons to the Ukrainian, but we don't send troops to Ukraine. We don't target directly Russian territory. Why? Because Russia has a bomb, atomic bomb. And we don't want a third world war and the destruction of the world. So for the Iranian, why to freeze the nuclear program? The Russian example shows that if we have the bomb, we are protected and we can do what we want outside. We can send troops in Iraq, we can send troops even in Saudi Arabia if we want to support a Shia revolution in the Gulf area. And we will not have any retaliation, serious retaliation on our territory. That's why if Iran gets the nuclear weapon, Iran will be like Russia today and could do what he wants with the neighbor country. So, but as you can see on this map, in blue, it's the Western ally of the West in the area. KRG is between Iran and Shia Iraq, what we can call, and on the road of this Iranian axis. So you are on the front line, and you know that it's the main challenge for KRG, how to stay an ally, to keep this alliance with the West, but at the same time not to be targeted by Iran. But time to time there is missile on Erbil airport or on your territory. But it's just missile. It's not an army who come. So I think that it's the most important challenge for KRG. Yeah? You are on the Iranian road. And how to be protected against this expansion. The other power in the area, it's Turkey. Turkey has also an expansionist strategy. She wants to recreate the Ottoman Empire through political influence, economic influence. And for the KRG, you know that it's a strategy of domination. To prevent to have more freedom, because Turkey don't want to see another KRG in eastern Turkey, for instance. So Turkey benefit from the KRG because Turkish society are working well here. But I spent 1 week in Mosul before to come here, and second time I go to Mosul. And I saw that the Turks are very, very active to Mosul, because they are making the new airport. They are investing a lot. The Turkish consul is very strong in Mosul. And about the airport, one of the first line between to Mosul airport will be a line between Mosul and Istanbul, of course. My friend told me that the Turkish consul during a dinner tell, welcome back home. No, Mosul is linked to Istanbul, but does it mean you belong to the Turkish space? So this is always this idea that Turkey would like to reinforce Mosul, to make Mosul bigger as it was 100 years ago, at the time of the Ottoman Empire. And of course, this would have consequences of the economic development of the KRG. If the Turks want to encourage Mosul, it will be at the detriment of Erbil. This map is not so nice here, but because I tried at the scale of the Levant to see the territorial reorganization with the war, with the fracture, and during last 20 years we have seen Erbil and Dohuk and Soleimani to be bigger and to have a very huge development. And we have seen on the other side Mosul to be destroyed and to lose its power. As we can see, Aleppo also has been destroyed and lost its power. So during this war, you have winner and you have a loser. For the moment, KRG, Erbil, Dohuk, Soleimani are the winner. But what will happen during the next 10 years if we see Mosul with Turkish support to increase? It will have consequences on KRG, of course. So you have to be aware about that. Of course, KRG is in Iraq. Iraq today is in a difficult political situation. Well, you have a new prime minister after 1 year. But the political situation is still very unstable, very, very fluid. And I think that Iraq will be in the future like Lebanon, like the politics in Lebanon. You need 1 year to choose a president, you need 1 year to make a government, and after it comes a new election. So everything finish, and we have to make new election. People are not agree about which kind of political system we have to use for the election. In Lebanon, since 1992, you have Hariri, since 2000, it's this political mess. No government, no president, no parliament, so no state, a very weak state. And in such situation, it's the community, it's the political party who are ruling the state. And unfortunately, how I see Iraq, how I see the situation in Baghdad, I think that we can have a parallel with what's happened in Lebanon. So for the KRG, it's not bad, because if you have a weak state in Baghdad, you can have freedom, because here you have a stable situation, you have a strong government. So it's not bad on one point, because if there is a central state very strong in Baghdad, I think he will change the constitution and come back on the Kurdish autonomy. It's quite clear. We see the Kurds have freedom and autonomy when the central state is weak. When the central state is strong, it's finished. So the problem in Baghdad is probably a good thing for KRG on Y side. So I'm going to conclude. For this, KRG so must be aware about this new international and regional balance of power, but I think that you are very aware about the situation, because KRG is a kind of happy island in a destabilized area, but it's necessary to avoid the spillover or the political trouble in the area. On the Iraqi side, I don't see any short-term political and economic improvement. We have, as I told you, we are experiencing in Iraq the same process of political instability as in Lebanon. And therefore, the KRG must preserve its unity at any cost. Because in the process of current fragmentation in Iraq, but also in the whole Levant, the people who will survive, it's the people who will be unified, who will keep their unity. Because everywhere, the people who are not unified will be the loser. The war in Ukraine has reinforced the NATO, the Western camp, and is now aware that we must stop backing down from Iran and Russia in Middle East. Otherwise, we will not have any military intervention like in 2003 in Iraq, no more American troops or French troops on the ground, just advisor. But we will support the local allies because we know that today we have to confront strongly against Russia and China and Iran. Negotiation, it's over. Putin, the Iranian, they don't take care about the negotiation. For negotiation for them, it's just winning time. So first, stop militarily their advance, and after we can negotiate. But before, no way. But of course, the West is far away from here, and Iran is close. So KRG could be victim of an embargo from Baghdad, if Baghdad can cut the budget, as he have done since 2014. And that's why I think that KRG must develop a very independent economy to be able to resist to any embargo, to any cessation of financial transfer from Baghdad. And to resist if a day you will see Shia militia to go to Feshrabur or to Ibrahim Khalil to take the border. What does it mean to have a strong army to be able to resist? Last but not least, the climate change. You have to be aware that the climate change is a reality, and it's a new crisis in the world, but especially in Middle East, because the temperature will increase very fast now. We can win 4-5 degrees very, very quickly. There is a problem of water scarcity, as you have seen this summer with the drought, with the lack of water. The Tigris, the Zab are coming from Turkey, from Iran, and they are making new dams, they are keeping the water, and you will have less and less water here. So you have to improve recycling station, you have to improve irrigation system, you have to be to take care about the natural resource. It's something very, very important. What does it mean to think about a new urban planning? Don't make public transportation, because it's not possible to let the people to move just by car. You are wasting your oil, wasting your money by that. And if you want to resist to any embargo, financial sanction from Baghdad, you need to have resources, internal resources, and you have to don't waste these resources. And of course, you have to fight against this climate change. Because what we see also in Lebanon, I take a lot of example in Lebanon. In Lebanon, no electricity, you need to have generator, no public transportation, so people have to use car. If you are wealthy people, no problem. You can have IC as you want, you can use your car as you want, no problem. You can go in Europe for holidays if it's too hot in Lebanon. But poor people or normal people today cannot afford it, cannot afford to pay. So it's a huge crisis, and I think that we could have a new civil war in Lebanon, not pushing by Iran or US, or no, just because of internal problem. It's the yellow shirt in France, it's the Arab Spring. You have to take care about the normal population, and probably to change the urban system, more to take care about the water, because this will create a gap inside the Kurdish population. And as I told you, if you want to be strong and to resist to all the problems that there is around you, you must be united, not just PUK and PDK, but rich and poor people together. Those pass.
Thank you very much.